All right, good evening. Yep, this is the September 29th Charter Committee meeting. Somebody's phone's going off. And welcome everybody. We actually have some people in the audience today, which is great. And more. So tonight we have discussions tonight with the cemetery group, cemetery committee, commission, library, town clerk, and the planning board. And then we're also going to do some, depending on how much time we have left after that, go through some of our open items and so on. We definitely have an update on the public forum and minutes. So that's our meeting for tonight. If there's not someone that says, I really have to get out of here right away, my recommendation would be that the library goes first. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. I don't hear anybody saying I have to leave right away. Okay, great.
Whoever wants to go first, absolutely.
Okay.
You just want to know the questions.
Giving away our game here.
All right, we're ready for the pop quiz.
Hopefully everybody can relax. It's really more simple than that. So, you know, as a background to what the charter committee is about, you know, we're putting together, looking at a document updating and of how the government will be structured, how the town government will be structured. A lot of it has to do with things like town manager versus town administrator. How much power does the town manager have, if that's the right word? How strong they are is a word that they like to use in these things. And then you start looking at the boards and so on. And so we have a lot of elected boards. We have positions who are elected. And every 20 years or so, whether you need it or not, you know, you're going to go through and look at these things and say, is this still the right way to do it and not? And so just talk about it. So that's what this is. So for your committees, you know, of the boards, how do people get there? Does that work? Who's appointing the director in the library's case? So who appoints the director? Who hires the director? How much does the town manager have involved? And talk about that. So there's no right, wrong answers. It's not a we have an agenda and we're trying to convince you of something. We really just want to learn where people are and what are the pluses and minuses of doing things different ways. A lot of this comes down to, it's not like something's broken in Littleton, but things obviously change over time. Joe did this last time they did a government review, it was about 20 years ago. Obviously the town is changing a lot. There's going to be more changes coming with all the growth and so on in town. So you need to look at these things and just say, is this the right thing? And obviously the world has just changed, right? A lot of volunteer boards and committees, at one time it was lovely and it worked great, and sometimes it doesn't work anymore. Things are just different. So it's just looking at that and understanding what could be different and if there's bad things or good things about changing something, okay? So with that in mind, so right now, can you just give a background on the library and how the board is, you are elected and how that goes, and then we'll talk about the director.
All right, so I'm Katrina Wilcox-Hackberg. I'm one of the trustees. Just for a little background on the library was established in 1885 through a gift. And as part of that gift, the board was elected. So that included not only the trust of Reuben Hoare Trust, which was the monies put forth for the library itself, but then eventually, and I think it was 1885, the Houghton Building, which is the historical building at this point in time, that was built in memory of the Houghtons to house the library. So both of those gifts were being under the custody of the Board of Library Trustees until the monies for those to the library and the building. And then in 1972, there was a Supreme Court of Massachusetts ruling that reaffirmed that essentially the board was comprised of people from 3 churches and 3 lay people from our town, and that was put forth as not appropriate. And after that point in time, the ruling said that the board should be elected based on Mass General Law, as outlined in the law. So at that point, under the law, basically Mass General Law, Chapter 78, Sections 10, 11, that whole section is relevant to town libraries, which outlines the town libraries' powers, how they should be. Section 10 actually says that a town library, unless there is a charter or the gift request set something else up, that it should be elected by ballot at a meeting. A board of trustees considered considering any number of persons, male or female, divisible by 3, which the town determines to elect. So at our annual town meetings, we do 2 each year. So the board is consisting of 6 elected individuals.
You're saying they get voted on at town meeting?
Or a town meeting, excuse me,
Sorry.
election.
Okay, great.
It could be town meeting, but we choose the
To do it at the
election.
election, okay,
Which
great.
is probably a much better place to do that.
Yeah.
It also, so we're elected for, annually for terms of 3 years, and then we choose our own chairman, secretary, and treasurer from that point. And then section 11 actually outlines, of the Master General Law outlines the Board of Trustees' powers and duties. It says the board shall have the custody and management of the library and reading room, and all of the property owned by the town relating thereto. All money raised and appropriated by the town for its support and maintenance shall be expended by the board, and all money or property which the town may receive, gift, or bequest for said library and reading room shall be administered by the board in accordance with provisions of gift or bequest. So again, unless there is something other else in the town bylaws or charter that overrides that, the state law sets forth that the board of trustees is responsible. So yes, that is what we're discussing, right? And to just keep in mind that section 33 is, as part of the Master General Law, is sets that the Board of Trustees need to set a collection policy that outlines how a written policy for the selection of materials and the use of materials in the facilities in accordance to the standards adopted by the American Libraries Association, which outlines how it upholds the standards of the First Amendment of our Constitution. So our board is actually responsible for a lot of First Amendment right governance as we go through. And then section 34 of the Master General Law also outlines employment contracts for library employees, which says the Board of Trustees of a free public library in any city or town, in the absence of a charter or bylaw that would override it, shall execute a written employment contract with an employee for said library, outlining the basic conditions of employment, so our director contract is what that is. And it's including how we get rid of a director if they're not fulfilling their responsibilities.
So, I'm sorry, so when you were saying that, so basically it says that the library trustees are supposed to hire the director? And is that true across towns as far as you know?
So I dug into the ARIS report, which is a report that goes to the state outlining the governance. Well, it's a lot of statistics that get reported to the state, but I looked specifically at the governance and hiring authority for Massachusetts public libraries. So of the 365 libraries in Massachusetts, 75% of them are considered town libraries, which is what our library is. The remainder are city libraries or corporation libraries, which are funded by either the city charter or what's the word? The nonprofits papers when they incorporate. So
Okay.
like those matter. So that's what their libraries are governed by. But as a town library, 75% of those libraries in Massachusetts are considered town libraries, which are under the direction of the Mass General Laws, and the majority of which, of these 75, like the 272 libraries have elected boards of trustees. So the majority of them are directly responsible, like directly elected out of the population from which they are making policy for. And then the director hiring is 74% of these libraries have trustee authority without town manager or town administrator interference.
So
And a very small percent are just town manager, 10%.
So, and just so you know, it's not a matter of really, who's doing the hiring. It's kind of a process thing. Again, it seems to get bigger and more complicated. A lot of what we hear from other boards too is that as you have volunteers and you're trying to hire somebody, that things don't happen as quickly as they might as you've got the professional, the town apparatus going after this. And so it's not like the town manager would hire somebody versus the library trustees, because obviously you're the people who are vested and know, and so on. It's more of a, does somebody here is driving the process to make sure that just timeline and so on, things are there, but obviously everyone is still involved. That's what we want to say, right? So just to understand that, when we have this discussion, it's really not of, well, I'm going to hire somebody versus you. Obviously, everybody still needs to be involved, but the expect to hear is the town, if we went that way, for your board, for this, that the town manager would just be driving the process, because now you've got the professionals and the full-time people doing that and getting the input from the part-time. So that's part of what we're trying to determine here. Again, as the world changes and, no longer, we don't have people from the churches,
Yeah.
assigned, the world
That's
changes.
an interesting piece of history, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Done from that.
Always wanted to go to
1972, yeah.
Yeah.
The library's been around for 139 years, and yes, we've only recently, I guess.
I'm sure that was a good way to get representation across the town once
I have
upon
a
a
feeling
time. It
that
made
was,
sense.
at the time, it probably did represent town and changed over time.
So,
I absolutely respect that the concern of the process. So are we fine with the board being elected, or is that a question still up for discussion?
well, we'll discuss all that, I think, after we get everybody. So, Kevin, do you happen to have the statistics on the library in terms of one of the things they tell us to look at is how often are these elections even contested, right? Because is it really that the people that are on it now, well, I'm leaving, and so I go find somebody who's going to replace me, and then we kind of do it that way?
Yep.
And so is it really an election anyway? So that's one of the things we look at.
So that gets I forget how many questions were, but one of the questions is, should we continue to elect or should we appoint trustees?
Right.
The authority of the trustees is a different matter, and to whom they report is I think, a different matter. But as to the statistics from the Collins Center, they gave us statistics about what they call competitiveness of elections for various positions and so forth. And for the library trustees, on average, over the past 10 years, 1.3 people have run for each position. 1.3 people. So in most years, only one person is 1, 1, 1, 1, 2. For some reason, we don't have 2020, there's a blank. So 4 ones, 2 twos, and 2 more ones. I'm sorry, and then a 1.5. So that gets to, should we be going through an election here? Is it really, or do people raise their hands?
So if I watched the meeting where you guys reviewed, that's just so I understood what the criteria by which you're making these decisions. And when I look back and I looked at that paper on your thing, we've had outstanding 2020 3 contested elections in the last 10 years. I think that was 2017, 2019, and 2024.
This is in 2019, 2 people ran for, I don't know how many, yeah.
We have 2 seats, so if there's 2 people on there, then it's 2 additional people in. Do you have it?
No, but I would also like to say that finding people to raise their hands is going to be a challenge, whether or not it's elected or appointed. That finding people to raise their hands is going to be a challenge, whether it's elected or appointed. And then what we've made a real effort to do in the past number of years is to hold sessions where we educate people about what being a trustee is. And that is something that we are in the position to know. And so coming as, and we would very much love to have more people raise their hands. And people who are different from us, different demographics, everything. But I think that the trustees are the people in the best position to understand what this role is, and to encourage other people to run for it.
So I will add on what Kimberly said, that the reason we were holding those public Q&A information sessions for anyone who is interested in learning more about being a trustee was in part because we wanted to branch out beyond our own social groups and networks. So we wanted to bring in people who were representing other groups in town that may not be represented on our board. So we have actually added to demographics, or looking at the people who ran in 2024 specifically. I would have taken any of them. They were all amazing, and we even notified the gentleman who did not win in 2024 when there was a seat opening, because his skills would have been great on the board. But he was unable to run this time. So I think beyond the statistics, which if I recall correctly from your meeting, that was as competitive as the school committee, the planning board, not as competitive as select board, so that's to be understood. But it was up there in terms of, we have some competitive races. And then in addition to that, I think one of the main responsibilities of our board is to be directly responsible to the communities of this town, and to setting policy that not only govern their free access to our library, not only materials, but meeting rooms, display boards, all these things that are actually part of the First Amendment. Our library is a limited public forum, so we have to make sure that we are governing it in a way that is responsible to our community directly. And so if our board becomes appointed by the select board, then I wonder how that changes the dynamic with the community directly. And then if there is an issue that needs to be redressed, which is part of the First Amendment criteria, if you will, like what's limited there, then who is the ultimate, if there is, say, a request to reconsider a material such as a book or something, and it goes through the process of the library director and his team, appointed review team, makes a decision, the library director makes the decision, communicates it, and that person then has the opportunity to redress by coming to the board of trustees and to see if what our decision would then be final. But then if that's not the case, does that, if we are appointed, does that mean that person can then go to the select board to ask for reconsideration as well? Does it just extend that chain to people who are not as versed in the
Those all have to be
library?
decided. So I mean, those are all good points. And I think the community piece and the feel that the community feels that they voted and that they have a say in it is important. The other thing, though, that comes up sometimes is that some people will say, but I would do it, but I don't want to run. I don't want to have an election. I'd rather be appointed. Because if you appoint me, yeah, I'm happy to do it, but I don't really want to have to go in and be an elected person and go through all that process. So that's the other side that we're hearing from some people.
I guess, given that we've had some competitive races and we've always seemed to find enough people to run for the points, that while I appreciate that point of view, there may be people who don't want to do that. For me, the protection of those First Amendment rights should be directly accountable to the elected by election. And so my concern is that if we appoint them, then that weakens that bond between the community and the elected.
Okay. I'm good on that part. Anybody else have any questions on that? Okay. Very well spoken, thank you. Got your point, I think.
Good.
Okay, so, and then you want to talk about the hiring of the director and your feelings on if the town manager or town administrator or whomever, whatever we have, because nothing's been decided for sure, going forward, you know, are they even involved in the process now, or do you pretty much just hire on your own?
So the last time we've gone through this process was actually Sam's
Sam,
hiring,
yeah.
what, 10, 11 years ago?
Has it been that long?
It's been a long time. Sam has outlived many of our town administrators at this point. So he's seen
We hear that a lot when people come to our boards.
We're very lucky to have staff who stick around, to be honest. But I did reach out to Mark Rombacher, who was sitting on the board at that time.
He's behind you, so
now
be
right
nice.
behind me, he's going to judge me. I didn't see you. So we reached out just to understand the process, and it was led by the trustees at that time, although he did have conversations with the TA about the process. And did you go through HR at the time, or was there no HR?
There was no HR.
There was no HR at the point, yeah.
Go ahead.
We formed a subcommittee. We had like 2 trustees, members of the public, friends, staff. We published the job in the National Library databases.
Yep.
And did a full search. The subcommittee vetted all of the applications, recommended 2 or 3 candidates that they brought forward to the full board of trustees, who then made the decision.
So, I mean, again, none of this is final. We still have a lot of discussion to have here. From my standpoint, I don't see much of that changing, even if you're saying that there's somebody from the town is driving the process, right? It's just that right now we have a lot of these MOUs. Are you under the MOU scenario? You're not under
We don't
that?
have an MOU.
Okay.
We did
So-
work with Michelle in HR to make sure that Sam's last contract was in line with all the town policies,
Okay,
all the
that's
new
good, right.
changing procedures, all those
Right.
things. So they were, she was incredibly helpful to make sure that we had included everything that a town employee should have in SAMS, and we didn't have anything extra in SAMS that didn't apply to anyone else. So our intention is to continue to work through HR to make sure that any contracts that we create are in line and also still funded through a budget.
Anybody else?
I have a question. Sam, do you direct everything to the trustees? Do you report to the trustees directly?
Yes.
Now, what involvement do you have with the town administrator?
So I attend, it's very, like I said, I've outlived TAs. So with previous TAs, I used to have like bi-weekly meetings with them to discuss things. I've always gone to all the department head meetings. I still go to, we usually have a department head meeting before the select board meeting, the same day, that morning. So I go to all of those meetings. If there's an issue, I still hire my staff through the HR department, and I still have to fill out the same forms that all the other department heads have to do. Jim still has to sign off on it, the finance director still has to sign off on it, HR director has to sign off on it. So that doesn't really change. Whenever there's an issue, it sort of depends on what the issue is. If it's an issue that I know that is more town related, I'll usually go to Jim and I'll keep the trustees informed. Or if it's a policy issue, then I know the trustees have to create a policy, so I'll go to the trustees, and then I'll probably report it at the department head meeting. So as the director, I'm kind of in the middle a lot. It's kind of a weird spot, but it's no different than any other library. I've spoken to other library directors about how it goes with them. As Katrina said, most of them report to their trustees, but they're also town employees that have town administrators or town managers or whatever that they have to speak to. It's really, it depends on, like with anything, the people involved. It depends on the director and the town manager or the town administrator and the trustees and how it works. When I first started, it was very different than how it is now, 11 years later, with how the relationships have evolved over the years. So, it's always different. But yeah, so I do keep Jim involved.
Does it seem to work for you now? Do you think it's okay the way it works now?
Yeah, I think it works well.
We've been really trying to make sure everyone has their lanes. So the trustees do policy and oversight. Sam has his day-to-day responsibility in hiring of the staff, and then, friends have their roles, and then making sure that town is connected as much as we can so that no one's working in their own silo.
We want to ask, because, go ahead.
Okay, I also just wanted to say too that if we were in the position where the town manager was leading the charge to hire a new director, there's always the chance that that director would not involve the trustees, and I feel like that's something that we would need to make sure happened and codified in a way, because it is the trustees that have kind of all the knowledge about the First Amendment protections and the kind of the special responsibilities of the library, and I wouldn't necessarily expect somebody who is in charge of everybody to know what those. Right.
And that's obviously, I understand why you'd be concerned about that. I think we all would be. But if we have a town person in charge of town administrator or town manager who hires that way and doesn't involve the right people, we've got another problem. Because it wouldn't just be the library, it would be every other group in town probably. So I agree, absolutely. But I mean, that has to be a given that when you have these committees and you're bringing the right people together to hire somebody. And again, the intention is if we went that route, it's really more the process. And so you have the paperwork and the things get done in that. But I understand the concern and very legitimate.
And I guess relying on 139 years of history of the board hiring and not having a problem, and also the majority of towns with town libraries are having the board of trustees directly hire the directors, it feels like there has to be a really understandable reason to tip the apple cart in the other direction, and we'd be really interested to hear what those thoughts are before it's decided.
Do we want to talk about the property a little bit? Because is that a little bit different too, that the library, the buildings and the things under your domain versus the town and who has control of what?
So I think when we frame these discussions, I think it's important to remember that libraries themselves are government institutions. So we have it seems like we're carved out and we're siloed, but we're also a government institution which is really funded by these First Amendment rights. So yes, we do have property that is the libraries, I believe. Mark, you were part of that?
So when we did when we built the new library, the footprint of the library is under the control of the trustees. They own like 1.5 acres of the town property. That was one of the requirements for the grant. Just like the property that the schools are under the control of the school, Park and Rec has some of their property. But the library itself and like 1.5 acres, something in there, is under the complete control of the trustees.
But who pays for maintenance on the building and pays for electricity and things like that?
Part of the budget of the town.
It comes out of the town facilities budget, just like every other building.
The budget of the town.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, right.
So the trustees do contribute through their trust funds. They contribute through the trust funds to both offset some of the material costs, the books and things, the library books, and museum passes, things like that. But they also have been contributing to the maintenance of the building. I don't know if it's more maintenance or more like enhancements, but.
What doesn't work?
The front door.
Yes.
What would you like to change?
We like the front door.
If there was some change, what would you like to see changed?
I will say that it has been a wonderful blessing to be able to coordinate with the building department and Eric and his team in making sure that the building is maintained the way it's been and the funding, and when his funding runs short, he does go through Sam to ask us for more funds to cover repairs. So, actually, I would say it's more clear now than it has been in some ways, because once the building was built, there was gray zone, and we worked very much with Anthony and the building committee, once the building facilities head there was hired, then we've been working with him to make sure that the repairs that we estimate we need based on those running costs that we had been accumulating right after the building was born was incorporated into the town's budget for the facilities maintenance. So we have been providing the money that we could in addition to that to cover costs that are not covered in the budget.
Anybody else?
Charlotte has her hand up.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oh, no, thank you for that. Charlotte? Oh, can't hear you though, Charlotte.
Yeah, maybe just,
Oh, there, yeah, you're on.
can't hear me?
Yep,
Oh, can you hear me now?
yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, just a continuation of that question. More generally, is there anything that you think could work better in terms of the management or operations? Are there any bottlenecks that you ever face that could be, sorry for the screaming child. Yeah, any bottlenecks or things that you think could operationally be made easier through the governance structure?
No, like I said, I think it's gotten a lot better over the years. I think when I first started, I felt like it was them versus me in a lot of ways. And now I definitely feel like I'm more part of the process. And so I think that has more to do with just everybody trying to work together and the changes in leadership and all that stuff.
I will say the one thing I would want is another Eric or another member on Eric's team for the facilities department, just because he's working so hard. Like, if I could advocate for one thing, it would be another team member to support him in all the buildings in town, not just ours.
Hey, Sam, when you said you felt like it was them versus me, who is them?
Oh, it was like our library used to be right there at the end, and I barely ever saw the TA.
Okay.
At the time, I don't think I saw him until like a week after I started, and it was more of a hostile interaction a lot of the time. But anyway, that's in the past. But it's much better now. Like, I had an issue, and I asked Jim if I could see him, and I was in his office 20 minutes later. It's been great.
Good.
I think it's important to point out too that this is a board that's going through all this information. That's why we asked you to come in. No decisions have been made. No one's leaning one way or the other. We're just gathering some information so we can sit down and figure out if certain boards should be changed and things like that. So I don't want to frighten people by saying things are going to be completely different, because they might not be, or there might be changes coming up. But that's something that we haven't, as a board, gone through with it.
Talk to everybody first, because, obviously, a lot of it goes together, and there are certain kinds of.
Along those lines, could you share the references that you spoke about at the beginning, sort of the background and the laws?
I can email you my document.
That would just be helpful to refer to, because it sounded like there's some really good nuggets in there, but there was a lot coming quickly.
There is a lot in the Master General laws, and then also our history and everything.
Right, thank you.
Actually, if you could get us the document, it'd be appreciated.
Yeah, that's what
I
you
will
said.
email it to the chair.
That too.
So
All
I
right.
just want to say thanks for the preparation and being here, and just to echo what Betsy and Joe have just said. We're just gathering, the end result of our work is a report to the select board, who may consider it and advance it, who may discard it. They've got complete ability, and then should there be any change with regard to a charter, that goes to town meeting. So this is the beginning process. Just
We
want to
absolutely respect that.
But thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah, Tim?
Yeah, just one question, maybe Sam can best answer this. Do you reserve meeting space within a library
Yes.
exclusively? Because
Yes, so our policy states that the library tends to gets first crack at it, and then it's town and friends, and then the general public. So when you say reserve, what do you mean? Is it like-
Well, I in the context of, we've had some discussions about, wouldn't it make sense to have a centralized process when someone wants to reserve a meeting room town-wide? You know, do they mistakenly go to the town administrator's office because they wanted the library really, or do they go to you? And you,
So patrons have a way to reserve rooms on their own through our website.
okay, all right.
For the
So-
library's website. still.
Yeah, they can go to the library's website and they can reserve the room. It's just, well, let's say they try to book a room when we're having a program.
Yeah, you're
Then,
gonna,
you know,
yeah.
it's obviously say no.
They won't
Most of
be
the time, most patrons, they can, you won't close. So, then they just have to come and get a key.
So that's part of, one of our most important policies is our meeting room and study room use policy, which again is, given that it's limited public forum, we have to be very careful about how we
Yeah.
structure it and outline any limitations of its use. So time, manner, there's something else, why am I forgetting it? Those are all outlined in our policy to make sure that anyone who reserves through our system, which is through the library's computer system attached to their library card, can use the meeting rooms.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
Times, place, and manner.
Place and manner.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate your time tonight and for being here. And also, the other thing we've told people, and I'll just say this for everybody, because we get to say it for every group, is that if afterward you say, oh, I meant to say this, or I should have said that, I mean, just call us and let us know. This is not a,
Yeah.
you know, you can, we're still open. Come tell us if you miss something. So, okay. Cemetery next? You got everybody there?
Yes.
Okay.
So we do have a brief presentation that we put together
Thank you.
tonight.
Thank you.
Have a good night. So I'm just going to, with your permission, share my screen
Yes.
up above.
Oh, yeah. He thinks he's connected or something, huh? He's gonna go right into our meeting, huh?
We have the power of sharing. Right, so let me see here.
You might want to introduce yourself for
Oh,
people who
yes.
may not know, and then what hat you're wearing at the moment.
Absolutely. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here. I'm kind of in a tricky corner over here with a laptop that's failed on me. Yeah, so it's just charging. I hope you guys don't mind if I'm
No,
projecting
fine.
from over here. So my name is Andrew Samarco. I'm with the Cemetery Commission in town. With me tonight is Carolyn Mueller, a fellow commissioner, Ian Heffernan, our assistant superintendent, David Badger, former commissioner for many years. Superintendent T.C. Bailey is here with us. I think he just had to run out in the hallway for a quick second, but he'll be back when you guys have your question period.
Okay.
So with that, I'll jump right in. So basically, tonight we just wanted to give the committee an overview of what the commission does, as well as the department, and just basically give you an overview of our unique mission for the townspeople. So with that, I'll jump right into our responsibilities. So the Cemetery Commission is charged. Can you guys see that? It's kind of squished.
Yes. Good. Cliff Notes version here.
There we go, perfect. So essentially, we're charged with the stewardship of Westlawn Cemetery and the old burying ground. We care for families and their loved ones with dignity and compassion. We perform really special missions like gravestone conservation and preservation to preserve Littleton's historic heritage. It's one of our specialties with the department. The daily care of our department, as I briefly touched on, is carried out by our superintendent, assistant superintendent, and we have a seasonal groundskeeper that also works for the department. In terms of financial stewardship, we are essentially stewards of the Perpetual Care Trust Fund, along with the Trust Fund Commissioners, over $900,000 in funds at the moment, as well as grants and department revenue that we get in terms of lot sales, burial fees. Oh, there we go. Thank you, LCTV. As well as planning and implementing capital improvements to the cemetery grounds and infrastructure. So whether it's new phases of cemetery expansion, our building, we're constantly planning to make the grounds and place more suitable for the townspeople. So who we serve, I did briefly just touch on that. Families in time of grief and loss, funeral homes, assisting families with arrangements, veterans and their loved ones through Memorial Day and flag placement traditions, We also serve community organizations such as the Scouts, civic groups and volunteers, and we serve future generations by preserving Littleton's cultural, historic, and natural resources. So just to kind of give you guys a snapshot of some of our major pieces for calendar year 2024, just to give you an idea of some of the major talking points, we performed 43 burials, 27 were full, 16 were cremation. We actually concluded our latest expansion phase of the cemetery at West Lawn with the Sullivan Loop expansion. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to drive up there. It's an amazing new space, a lot of new grave space for the townspeople. 18 historic gravestones were conserved using our CPA grant to hire Finnan and Lerner of Concord to perform that work. It's actually our, I believe, 8th year this year conserving gravestones. We've actually, and I'll be touching on this a little later, we've conserved roughly 140 gravestones between the old burying ground and West Lawn Cemetery. Other than that, we've removed a number of hazardous trees that were threatening the townspeople and replaced them with pollinator-friendly trees to serve our environment. In October of last year, we actually adopted a new fee and schedule structure for the townspeople for services, lots, some of the bigger items that we take care of on the cemetery side, the commission, is policy setting, regulation setting, and fees structure. And then this year we're excited because we're actually going to be hopefully getting our building conditions assessment completed for the West Lawn Administrative Building, something that's been in our background for a while, and hoping to get that done and guard our future work. So unique responsibilities. As I touched on previously, we manage burials, lot sales, and cemetery records. We actually have an extensive amount of records for burials in town. We steward the perpetual care trust funds, grants and revenue, long-term planning to ensure future grave space to meet community needs, and as I touched on, nearly 10 years of gravestone conservation in the grounds and building improvements. So one of the really differentiating factors for us compared to, let's say, a standard DPW is our staff on a daily basis coordinates directly with families and funeral homes to take care of burial arrangements and to help families in times of great need. When somebody loses a family member, I mean, that's as dark as you can get. And we have a great staff. We're very lucky with TCE and to have them up there. I get nothing but excellent reports about them helping families. We ensure that every burial and service is handled with dignity. And we're lucky that we have a crew of senior volunteers that help beautify our grounds. So I did touch on the historic gravestone preservation. We focus on 18th and 19th century markers at West Lawn and the old burying ground. That's one of the big cultural and historical programs that our department really specializes in, because up until 2017, nothing was getting done at the old burying ground at West Lawn. And so we're very fortunate to be able to work with CPC Historical Commission to get that program going. A lot of towns, you go through their older burying grounds and their stones are degrading into the ground. So we are really lucky to have this program going. And as I mentioned, that's with CPC and Historical Commission support. And that's to ensure that Littleton's cultural heritage is protected for future generations. Cemetery planning, a lot of this is rehashing what I've briefly touched on. So the Sullivan Loop and expansion areas, we're constantly working on that, tree care and management plans, infrastructure upgrades, and the ongoing focus on beautification, accessibility, and sustainability for the grounds and building. Community role, so we're the host of the annual Memorial Day ceremony and Veterans Flag Placement. We host flag retirement ceremonies by scouts and local groups, and we're moreover a gathering space for remembrance, reflection, and community tradition. And our cemeteries really are a part of this town's cultural identity when it comes down to it. So why the current structure works. So right now you have clear accountability where you have the voters electing members of this commission, and we then appoint professional staff to carry out the day-to-day demands. So we're directly accountable to the voters. We have a dedicated focus. We're not competing with the DPW to get road projects done. other DPW-related necessities. It's a very focused department with a very focused mission, which serves the town well. And as I touched on previously, we have financial responsibility for the trust funds, revenues, grants, and expenses. And because we manage those all locally, we ensure that they're used for cemetery care, preservation, and improvements with accountability to the community. In terms of ongoing improvements, we're constantly planning and upgrading the grounds, facilities, and infrastructure. So we have a proven record of compassionate family care, specialty projects to benefit the culture and history of this town, and community trust, which is key. So the risks of potentially moving a cemetery department under DPW or removing the elected status of the commission. So cemeteries, let's say if you put the cemetery under DPW, it could become one of many priorities, losing the dedicated focus to important priorities. You'd have a risk of reduced emphasis on compassionate family care and service potentially. The specialized historic gravestone preservation and other culturally significant programs that we really pride ourselves on could be potentially deprioritized under a DPW just because they're so busy. They really don't have the bandwidth to go after grants, to manage the grants, and to host many of the programs that we do. And then the potential for revenue and trust fund management to lose clarity, potentially. If the trust funds come under a DPW, how are they going to manage that, work with the trust fund commission? And then big ticket right here is the potential costs and staffing changes. If you're dealing with union contracts, personnel costs, and decreased operations and staffing flexibility, that's huge for the cemetery department. We have a lot of weekend, afternoon burials as of late, and staffing right now is very flexible, and that could be a detriment, shifting that. And then, most importantly, loss of direct voter accountability, institutional memory, and less transparency. Right now, the board, we're accountable to the voters. A DPW, if you go to some towns, if you have an issue with a grave plot or you're trying to make arrangements, you have to go through, I dare say, a bureaucracy. I can't pronounce words today, but to get things done, which is unfortunate. But as of right now, we're one of the best towns to work with. And I promise this is just about it. Long presentation. So our vision for the future is to continue preserving our town's cultural background and history, to enhance community spaces through thoughtful improvements to cemetery grounds and infrastructure, to expand responsibility, provide additional grave space for future community needs, stewardship with care, ensuring funds and resources remain dedicated to cemetery purposes, and remaining compassionate to the core, uphold our commitment to serving families with dignity and respect, many of which things probably wouldn't be doable without an elected board. But yeah, but thank you so much for letting me present to you guys.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So, so you kind of addressed the elected board versus not in terms of you, although you heard the discussion earlier. So besides the fact that, I don't know what the numbers are on the competitiveness of the elections for the cemetery commission, but.
1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, average of 1.
It takes a unique group to run for cemetery, but I think the people that do run, they're dedicated to the mission and just, they're in it to serve the town and for the right reasons.
But if you look in the last 30 years, there's probably been about 6 commissioners. It's also one of longevity.
Right.
Right. Gotta be, right. By the way, Charlotte has her hand raised. Just
Okay, you want to go first? Okay, Charlotte, go ahead.
Hey, thanks. So you make a very compelling case for obviously, the functionality and the success of the current structure. If I was one of those towns that has folded cemetery into DPW, what are the arguments for that in your perspective? What is the counter? Are they, because if I was, them listening to this, maybe that's not such a great idea. So where is that balance? Are there any benefits to it, or given what Littleton is currently doing, do you really see that as just having no upside?
I really just think at the end of the day, you're adding so many layers onto a very accessible department for the townspeople that really delivers for them. And in scooping it underneath an overarching DPW, there's not a lot to gain. I am biased, full disclosure, but I really don't see the benefits in doing so. I think you're really just putting more obstacles between the townspeople and their cemetery departments. And I mean, it may work for cities, but I don't see the benefits for Littleton.
You had an MOU once upon a time, and I learned after stating in a previous meeting that it doesn't exist anymore. So could you take us through you had one and you decided thanks, but no thanks, it appears.
Yeah, so back in 2017-ish, 2018-ish, the cemetery had explored with our sitting town administrator at the time, having an MOU, basically to get highway assistance for equipment, services, and to kind of have the superintendent of the cemetery supervised by the town administrator's designee. And that lasted, I want to say, for maybe 1.5 years, 2 years at most, but it just got to the point where decisions were made without the cemetery department even really being aware. Like, there was a truck that was repaired at the cost of thousands of dollars without the commission being aware of the department. And we have a very tiny budget, under $30,000 for the year, so it goes quick, and we have to be very conservative with it. So it just wound up being a lot more red tape and a lot more the usability of the department for the townspeople just suffered tremendously. And the select board at the time and the commission came to a mutual understanding that it wasn't a good fit for the cemetery. And it was ultimately repealed and restored, with the commission having full day-to-day control, well, supervision of the staff. So it has been tried in the past, and unfortunately, it just it wound up being, I don't want to say uncoordinated between highway and cemetery, and we really didn't take advantage of many of the highway's equipment or services at the time. So it was a good idea to try, but it just didn't wind up working out for us.
How do the day-to-day operations work with the town then? How much interaction is there with the rest of the town on a day-to-day basis and on like these weekly, department meetings and all those kinds of things?
Yeah, so our staff does report to the staff briefings, department head briefings, twice a week when the select board meets. And I mean, we're very friendly with other departments. We've worked very well with Light and Water. They've helped us out with a tremendous amount of projects. Highway has from time to time as well. I think we have a very good working relationship with the other departments in town. But we very much are our own independent agency.
So is there anything that you go to the town administrator for versus the select board? I guess I'm pointing to you directly.
I haven't gone directly to Jim for anything. I certainly would, but I guess the answer to that is, I go to all the department head meetings. The answer to that is we've been kind of lucky that nothing big has reared its ugly head. It's been pretty smooth. So there hasn't been any reason to reach out of our own little tribe.
And when you hire, like you have a seasonal worker and there's an assistant too, you said, I think?
Yeah, Ian's our assistant superintendent.
Sorry. I don't know what people say. So how does that hiring work? Who hires? Who does the hiring?
Yeah, so the board does the hiring. We work with Michelle in HR to go through resumes after getting the position posted, and we've worked to come up with the grading criteria, the questions, and then we meet, go through the resumes, bring in the finalists, and then wind up voting on a finalist. And yeah, it's worked well. I mean, we have a great staff.
I mean, does that work? Because again, you heard the prior discussion. Some of the things what we're hearing is sometimes because the volunteer boards, they can't respond quickly enough and so on, and the hiring process can be difficult and so on.
Oh, we've been pretty lucky. I mean, we're pretty quick. When something goes down and we've needed to hire a staff member, we're pretty on the ball. Not to brag or anything, but
And also in fairness, we don't have as much staff as, say, the library department or the rec department. In my 9 years here, we've only had to hire somebody once, unless you count part-time seasonal guy, so twice.
It's also a small commission, so we're not trying to get a quorum of 9 members. You know, there's 3 of us, so it have to be at least 2. So it's easier for us to be a little more nimble than another town board.
If I can, Mr. Badger, if anyone has experience in town as far as this type of work goes, and being an old neighbor of yours and playing in the funeral home in the past.
I just wanted to make point that basically the commissioners are under, they serve under the pleasure of the Commonwealth under Chapter 119. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. So it's not a willy-nilly type commission. We do have responsibilities to the state. And we've done a great job up there forever. I mean, as far as like new land, we, in my era, we were able to work with Mrs. Hartwell. We have more land than the majority of cemeteries around here. I mean, even you go to Mount Auburn Cemetery, they're looking for alternative areas for burials because they're all out of land, and it only costs you a lot more. But anyway, if you have any questions, the old gendarme is here.
Well, do you have things that you, I think the question came up again in the library, so is there anything you feel like is, if not broken, but could be better that you would suggest, that you would recommend?
I think the major thing for our department is, I did mention briefly that we work under $30,000 a year for our operating budget. And if we have a large repair to our building or to our machinery, you know, our truck's from 2012 and it's pretty rusty. So to replace a part on that truck, I mean, that could wipe out our entire vehicle maintenance budget. And we're down for the fiscal year. So that, and that budget really hasn't grown much over the last 20 years.
We can't help you with your budget. That was a different time, I wore that hat.
So I guess, if anything, we're a very conservative department. I mean, we work well within, you know, what we have, and you know, if something were to arise, luckily we haven't had to do a reserve fund transfer, come back to FinCom and Select Board, but it's always an issue that could very easily come into play during a fiscal year if something major happens. So that's one thing that I think could do better, you know, on the town side, but we work with what we have and we're happy to do it, and any help is appreciated.
I have one more question that came to mind. So you talked about how times Light and Water has helped you and DPW has helped you on occasion. Does it ever go the other way where the town says, hey, we really need somebody over here, can you guys help out? Does that ever work, go that way?
We've never done that, to my knowledge, over the last, I've been on the board over 9 years now. David, I don't know if...
Occasionally, like when we did the new section, the Sullivan Loop, we somehow Craig Sullivan had talked to the highway department and we're able to get a bigger machine to help out up there. You know, it's always been even with Jimmy Clyde, it was like, what do you need? Okay, we'll send it over, that type of thing. One of the issues that I see is that the highway department is only on a 4-day work week. Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
What are you guys gonna do when you have burials? A funeral home truck calls on a Friday, or is trying to set something up for Friday, they can't get them? What, you know, I don't know. I don't know what your plans are, but.
We don't have any plans, we're just trying to understand and hear what could be better. And honestly, the focus, I think, here is probably, I mean, that has been brought up. The discussion here is more about the elected board versus appointed boards, and does the board hire the director, or is it more of a process that also includes the town? Obviously, you're still gonna be the primary people, obviously hiring somebody, but do you have that, you know, so it's the same process across the board for everybody? That's a lot of what we're looking at too.
I'm also hearing 43 burials, 2 employees, and a $30K budget. I mean, it doesn't sound like I don't know. it seems small, I get the importance of it, and I'm not taking away from that. But just kind of looking at, do we really need all the extra infrastructure around that? Versus does it make more sense to consolidate it with a larger department?
It's an interesting point. Yeah, so I mean, overall, I mean, it's such a busy department, and like I mentioned briefly before, we really do work with what we have, which isn't a whole lot in terms of equipment and the building that we have. Our building's from 1993 and hasn't had any major upgrades in that time period. But yeah, I think for the amount of demand, the day-to-day interaction, aside from the burials itself, the work on the grounds, it really is a 365-day-a-year operation to just maintain the place, let alone perform the burials. But yeah, it's a busy place.
But it's also a skill. I mean, you don't want just any kid going up and mowing the cemetery. You know, you don't really think of it, but like the guys are so used, they know how close you can get to the stones, because that's how the stones get damaged. The burial lots, how big do you dig them? You know, where it's certain skills that you can't just pull someone off the highway today and say, oh, you're going to the cemetery today to dig a full burial. They're not going to know. You know, you'd have to go and train another 18 people to do all that. So if we have dedicated cemetery staff, they know what they're doing. They can, dig all the holes they need to do. They can, mow what needs to be mowed. They know, what needs to be fertilized or whatever. So that's one of the advantages to having a cemetery staff that handles the cemetery. Plus, they're also, I mean, these are the guys that are, selling you your burial lot, or coming up when, someone suddenly needs to be buried. You don't want to just, pull somebody off of tarring the road to go up and say, hey, can you take care of this family? So I think that's one of the big things is it's even though it's just, they're just mowing and digging, there's a definite skill that is specific to the cemetery.
Go ahead, thank you.
And I just wanted to add that 43 is the lowest I've experienced. The highest amount of burials I've experienced was 63. That year was really busy. But it's usually somewhere in between there. It's usually somewhere in the mid-50s.
So, one a week on average.
Well, or 3 on a
Yeah,
Saturday.
no,
It's
but
like-
that would be too
No, I
easy,
get that.
right?
Don't
Only
say-
with-
don't say- I'm just saying, I said average, I said average. I didn't say all the time, average, get it.
Okay, I think we got the information we needed. Anybody else have any other questions? Do you have anything else you want to tell us?
I think we're good, but thank you so much for having us.
Thank you very much.
Can you forward the
Betsy.
slides?
Absolutely. Oh,
Thank
yes.
you.
Did you want the slides?
Yes, please. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
For the record,
And,
we're lucky to have you.
Yes,
Oh,
we
thank
are.
you, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you.
Charlotte's got her-
I'm sorry, Mark?
Charlotte's got her-
Oh, Charlotte? Oh, sorry. Charlotte, go ahead. Quickly, before we lose.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, I did have a question for the Cemetery Commission, and maybe we can come back to this, but it sounds like a lot of the concerns are around maintaining this uniqueness of the Cemetery Commission and the skill set and the dedicated service. My understanding is it's fairly common for a town to have a separate cemetery division or a cemetery section within the Public Works Department where that division still has its own dedicated staff and with dedicated roles, etc. I'm just curious if that's a model that you've come across and to what extent that would create a balance of the kind of pros and cons that you've been discussing tonight.
Absolutely. Without naming any names, there are a couple of neighboring towns that have an appointed commission with a cemetery division. I would say it's more commonplace where you'll have DPW workers that kind of rotate. Maybe they're mowing a baseball field in the afternoon, and the next morning they're digging a grave, and it's a rush and it's kind of messy. But we do have towns around us where the cemetery is a division of the DPW, and the board is appointed and really doesn't have much oversight. And it's essentially the town manager through the DPW, through the cemetery managing things. And the red tape is tremendous. And I don't want to comment negatively on conditions on those cemeteries, but they do suffer ultimately because you don't have that dedication that a department like ours has. Again, without tearing them down, but there's just so many layers of government operating the cemetery. At the end of the day, it almost trips over itself in getting the work done. Especially the specialized parts, forget about that. Doesn't happen under a DPW structure. That's out the window. They just want to get the grass mowed at that point, and that can even suffer. So, again, without naming any names.
Okay, all set, Charlotte?
Thank you, Charlotte.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thanks for everything you do. Good job. Oh, thank you. Okay. Right back here. Some of these guys. Right back. Diane, your turn. Okay.
Dane Curry, Town Clerk. Why making the Town Clerk an appointed position is bad for Littleton? 1, loss of democratic accountability. 2, threat to institutional independence. 3, erosion of local tradition and civic engagement. 4, risk of politicized appointments. 5, undermining community trust. Appointing the town clerk in Littleton would shift a critical role away from the direct control of the public, reducing transparency, independence, and risk weakening trust in local governance. While professionalism qualifications are important, they should not come at the cost of democratic accountability, especially in a role so central to the integrity of elections and access of public records. The town clerk right now is an autonomous position and the only one that can hold others accountable without fear of being fired. In a town with strong democratic traditions, reducing elected positions sends a message that centralization of power is more important than the public's voice and civic participation. You are now making a political position if you change it to an appointed position. Public trust is paramount, and perception matters as much as reality. The appearance of political pressure or lack of independence can erode public trust. Littleton's traditional town meeting form of government is bottom-up by design. These proposed changes shift the power to top-down, and once that balance is gone, it's hard to return it. I have a couple questions for you. Do you know that an elected town clerk is more likely to be long-serving, re-elected multiple times? Did you know an elected town clerk is more likely to be rooted in the community? That's what Littleton residents want and deserve. Did you know that an elected town clerk is deeply familiar with town history, laws, and culture? That's what Littleton residents want and deserve. Did you know an appointed town clerk may be seen as just another staff member, subject to turnover based on managerial preferences and HR politics? Did you know an appointed town clerk usually goes to a town just for the money, not for the residents? Do you believe that administrative efficiency, what you're calling it, not me, is more important than direct democratic accountability? Do you believe that loyalty to a town manager is more important than to the residents one would serve? Do you believe that elections would be more trustworthy under an appointed town clerk and therefore not have public trust? If you have a contested election under an appointed clerk, would the results be more trustworthy? If the appointed town clerk is under a town manager, what safeguards are there regarding conflict of interest? Here's a few facts for you. I know it's been said that it's turning away from elected positions, but there are currently over 200 elected town clerks. Town clerks interact with every town board or committee. The town clerk interacts with every town department. By changing to an appointed town clerk, you're hurting the voters. By changing to an appointed town clerk, you are taking power from the voters and putting it into the hands of just one person. By changing from elected to an appointed town clerk, you lose the character of the position, the history of the position, the continuity of the position, the history of the town, the residents, the caring attitude towards the residents, the personal interactions with the residents. With an appointed town clerk, there is no incentive to train your predecessor, as you have no idea who that might be, AKA a succession plan. With an elected town clerk, you get that individualized personal touch. What appointed town clerk would come back into the office, especially if they lived in Boston or perhaps Gardner, on a weekend to print off a birth certificate for a resident that was desperate, in need of one, trying to get on a plane for a trip and can't find their child's birth certificate? I've done that. What appointed town clerk who lives out of town, perhaps in Boston or Gardner, is going to come back to print off a marriage license for a desperate bride that has misplaced her license and is getting married in 2 hours? I've done that. You're an elected town clerk. What appointed town clerk would care about the poll workers to spend time finding out their likes and dislikes for meals as their volunteers, and then spend their time preparing a meal for them to say thank you? I've done that. You're elected town clerk. What appointed town clerk is going to give the time of day to our seniors when they have no one else to listen to? I do, because I care. You're elected town clerk. Keeping the town clerk elected is even more essential to preserve independence, accountability to the people, not an internal hierarchy. In a democracy, not every problem is best served by appointing an expert. Sometimes the best safeguards is a public accountability, community knowledge, democratic legitimacy, all of which this elected town clerk and others will provide. Thank you.
Here's my question, my first question.
Nice.
Sure.
Very well done. We love having you there, and you've done a great job. And then, Joe said, how many town clerks have we had over the, not that, right? It's
On my
only
lifetime,
10.
I think it's 3.
So, my first question would be, so you're not elected anymore. We elect somebody else, and Andrew lost the election, and so somebody else gets elected in here, right? And they're in for 3 years, and they come in, and they do a terrible job. We stuck with them for 3 years, and there's nobody to answer, they don't have to answer to anybody else?
So
They're not.
you do have a recall. You could recall them.
That's a lengthy process,
It is a lengthy process, but
and it doesn't always work.
does not always work. I think that the townspeople are smart enough and wise enough, and they know what is good for this town, and in the processes that we've been doing, that training someone to take over the position, they're looking to, so Andrew runs. Is someone going to run against him? I don't know. But I think that the knowledge that he has, the ability that he has, training him, getting him up to speed. I think that having an election wouldn't change anything by bringing somebody in that supposedly has the knowledge, because they wouldn't have the caring, the understanding of what Littleton's about. And you bring in an appointed town clerk, you'd lose all of that. You know,
I guess I don't really understand. I mean, what you're saying, I mean, all thinking about, somebody's been trained and they've invested all stuff. To me, that's who's gonna get appointed. If you have an
Not
election, now you
necessarily.
open it up for other people.
Well, not necessarily. You open up an appointed position to the whims of a town manager who decides it's a whomever they choose.
Well,
They
hopefully, I
open
mean,
it-
there shouldn't be any
or-
hiring done like that, but
Or
yeah.
the select board.
Yeah, or the
Could
select
be
board.
appointed by the select board.
And I'm just,
Yep,
I mean-
I understand that.
you know,
I
if
think-
we look at the record, you know, we say it's an elected position, but there hasn't been a contested election for ever, I don't know,
Yeah.
you know, a long, long time, so is.
I guess I'm going to choose to step in. I think we're overplaying that stat. I think there's a series of stats that we're overplaying. There's a series of criteria that we've been by Colin Sutter. And I don't find them to be overly convincing to me, and I just want to go on the record with that.
That's fine.
So I think that, you know, elected or appointed, you know, like I said, I believe that if you put somebody in as an appointed position, they're at the whim of the town manager or, you know, whomever. You as an appointed town clerk are at the mercy of the town manager. I will tell you this, that in the last several weeks, I have brought to the attention that things were not proper. And had I said what I said and been an appointed town clerk, would have found the pink slip on several different days. I will tell you that right now.
You also have the capability, and I'm playing devil's advocate here tonight, because
Yep.
I appreciate what you do, and
Yep.
I can see being in that position, and
Yep.
I totally get it. But as the town clerk, if you really saw something that was wrong, you'd also have the capability to go to the state, right, and say, something, they're not doing it right, this is wrong. I mean, there is another layer there, correct?
It depends on
what it is.
On what it is.
Right. Because there aren't, I don't know if there's, I mean, again, we've been so lucky with the town clerks we've had and so on, but I mean, it is a unique position, you're here, and you basically don't have a boss. You can work part-time all the time. You
Every
can go-
single person
Yeah,
sitting
but
in
yeah,
here.
but no, you're elected for 3 years, you know, you really don't.
Sure.
On a day-to-day basis, these bosses don't know what you do, right? It's just, it's.
Well, I mean, it's an autonomous position in the sense that, you know, you have people that need to have their feet held to the fire, and this position, being an autonomous position, is the only one that can hold their feet to the fire.
Yeah. I hear you, I do.
I don't see any great reason to make any change. I'm happy. We've been doing well. But just to make a point, I worked in a city where the city clerk was elected. And you make the point about town managers, all the power, and the clerk has none, and the kinds of things that causes the community. In this town, the town city clerk was such a pain in the butt to the mayor, just because he was elected and had no boss. He just did whatever the heck he wanted to do. He didn't show up half the time. The people that worked in the office did the work. So there's both sides of that issue.
I'm sure there are good clerks and bad clerks out there everywhere, whether they're appointed or elected. But I think that the track record in this town, we have been very fortunate.
Yeah.
in that nobody has taken advantage of anything like that. And I can tell you right now that in the 20 years that I've been here, you've gotten well over your.
We all know. We all know.
And it is the only position, elected that is paid. But it is also the only position that, we give to this town. The clerks give to this town. The assistant clerk gives to this town.
You do. The position clerk doesn't do it. You do because
Right.
of the person you are.
Right. But that's the position.
Right.
That's the position. You have to be the position is a very caring, you have to be a very caring person in this town to be able to survive and because we are a unique community and we are a caring community. And I think that switching to an appointed position, this specific position would be a detriment to this town. I just think that, I think you'd be, bringing in somebody from the outside, I think would be absolutely horrible.
That's not necessarily,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be, you could
Appointing
promote
all
from
people who've been
within,
elected all these years,
like we
right?
do with police and fire, and, you could, if you have a talented person on staff, naturally they'd be the one to, you don't,
It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody out of town.
no,
Right.
right.
We would appoint Andrew right away.
And I think that's part of the problem is that if you switch to an appointed position, like I said, you want to be able to be training the person who would be taking over for you. And what's the sense in me? Why would I spin my wheels and train somebody if they're not going to be taking over for me? That's the whole idea of having the next person, your assistant, bringing in somebody who is going to be caring about you and taking over, caring about the position and taking over for you, knowing that you're leaving a legacy behind, and that person is going to care about the town, care about the position, care about the residents, and you're not feeling like you're spinning your wheels and wasting your time.
Yeah, I mean, when I hear that, though, to me, that says appointed more than elected, because now that's the person I want, so I don't need an election, that's the person I want, it's
But
done.
you're training, well, because I'm not appointing them, but I know that they would care enough to run.
Mark,
Right,
you have
because
something you
no
want to say?
guarantees though either, that's the
So I don't
problem.
really want to step into the elected versus appointed aspect of
Okay.
this, but I would say that is, if we do go to the appointed, I think Diane makes a really good argument that the person needs to be a Littleton resident.
Yes,
right?
I agree.
And then once they're a Littleton resident, the fact that they're appointed versus elected becomes much more squishy, because if they're a Littleton resident, then they can just as easily run for an election as go through the appointment. So once they're you need the residency requirement. And then I think it almost makes it an elected position from there. But if you kind of flip the argument around, then it makes more sense that way. You don't want someone coming from outside.
Have it just be a job, right?
Yes.
Right.
You want someone
Vested, I get that.
That's a good point too, because if someone comes into the town hall and wants to go to find out information, where do you go to first? You go to the town clerk's office to get information. So you need someone there that has the knowledge, has been in town for a while, to make that be successful. And I've always thought that, and going back, and I know things changed over 20 years, but we went through the same argument 20 years ago. And the Town Government Study Committee did change the town treasurer from elected to appointed because we thought that was important. But we didn't change the town clerk at that point because we thought it was like a check and balances. One person there that was independent, that wasn't going to be appointed. So there's arguments both ways. I understand, the appointment part, but at the same time, having someone from town being elected is something that we have to consider.
Yeah. Charlotte's got her hand up too. Charlotte?
Okay, thanks, Diane, very much. I think what I'm hearing you say is that in practice, it's sort of anyway a little bit of a succession plan. You could argue that what you already do is appointing, but the fact that it is elected preserves so much of the trust and transparency that it's kind of almost worth having that hybrid, if you like. My question is, what would you do, or what would you put in place to ensure that the things that you're talking about aren't just the norms of what we expect from the town clerk, or what you have established as the norms, and are sort of the guarantees of a town clerk, recognizing that's a little outside of the charter, but I think that's where the concerns come from, is what if someone else is elected to the position and doesn't do as good a job? Are there ways to kind of build that in to the position for Littleton, so that you could preserve that for future elected roles?
Well, I think part of it is, you know, obviously everything that the clerk does, you know, is through Mass General Law, but it's the attitude of the clerk, the attitude of the office, it's the knowledge of the residents, and you really can't build, you can't put that into law. You can't put the attitude of the caring into law. I mean, that's just comes natural, and there's nothing that somebody from outside of this town would ever understand. And so I guess knowing, you know, if I was to put down 10 things that would be necessary to be a town clerk in Littleton, I mean, you would have to say the caring attitude, putting a smile on your face every day and welcoming everybody into our office, helping everyone and treating everybody exactly the same. But you couldn't put that in law. I mean, it's just the way that you have to treat people. You know, we do, and that's what we do. And I don't think people outside of our office, outside of the town, would understand that.
Ron?
So,
Yep, thanks.
you're a unique employee, I believe. So, sometimes with other boards and commissions, we're talking about department heads who receive a performance review, that sort of thing. Is your performance review, if you will, the thanks that you get informally? Is it your reelection every 3 years, consecutive terms? How do you get feedback? And
I get feedback every day from residents, from my coworkers. You know, interactions, you know, from other departments, interactions from residents, interactions with boards and committees every day.
I'm just trying to point out how I think you stand out as a unique employee, and in that regard, I want to ask, how unique are you with regard to HR policies and things of that nature? Like, are you?
I fall under HR policies.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you have us hear that performance of your duties, and Andrew in the town clerk department, et cetera, that you think should be aired in order to be aided, improved? Is there anything that we can do to allow your reach and your involvement with the town to be smoother, much like we've asked the previous groups tonight?
Well, I think our department is just so unique in that we interact all the time with residents almost every single day, and I think that there isn't anything that our department needs in the sense of how we can make our department better, in the sense of what can you give us to make it better? It's what we can give to the residents that can make it better. It's how can we, asking them all the time, what do you need from us, is what we do. We are always asking that.
I'll be more direct.
Okay.
Do boards, commissions, committees do a great job of responding to your request for minutes?
No.
And getting?
I mean, that's always a downfall. I mean, we're always sending emails to boards and committees for their minutes, and quite often not getting responses, and quite often not getting the minutes.
Is that communicated to select board? Is that
It's
communicated to the TA?
communicated back to everyone,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. And Diane, Joe mentioned the town treasurer a bit ago, and I think we did the same thing with the tax collector. Is that correct?
Yes.
Changed it from elected position, town employee, if you will, to an appointed position in both cases. How is that different in the case of the town clerk? I imagine you see it differently.
I see it differently because we're responsible for elections, and we're responsible for our town meetings set up. We really need to know the players that are running for elections, and what is happening with volunteers, because we really need to know the volunteers that we are dealing with at both elections and town meetings. We have to understand who they are, who's helping us. We have to set that all up, and if we are appointed, you're not going to really know the residents and people that are looking to volunteer and helping out. And we've got to,
If it's an outsider.
If it's an outsider, yes.
Yeah, if it's someone who came up through the ranks, they're going to have the same
Yeah.
institutional knowledge, so to speak. Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to mention that, we make a lot of the lack of opposition for the position. I don't know if you've ever been opposed. I can't recall, Diane, or,
No.
Going back years and years. But if you also go back, for the past 50 years, everyone who has become town clerk was first appointed interim town clerk
Yes.
by the Board of Selectmen.
Correct.
So evidently, they made some good appointments over the years, because they got a pretty good string going. I mean, with, Mary and Arlene before that, and Linda Knupp. So, in a sense, you've got an appointment, and then you've got 20 years of, walkover elections. It's almost like an appointment anyway, right? I mean, and I'm just saying, I think the board has done pretty well with who they've appointed over that, and I hate to sort of, there's kind of a presumption that a board or a town manager will choose badly. And I don't think that's the case.
I think it's all, well, in my case, it was an appointment based on the town clerk's.
Death.
No, she actually.
Oh, she resigned. You're right.
She resigned, and she
You're right.
suggested that I take over for her, so
Yeah.
under her direction.
Right.
That's one of the things we're hearing for a lot of these. It's like, they're elected now, but usually what it is, the current board, they know somebody's leaving, and so they, use their resources and their networks, and they find somebody else and say, well, will you run?
Yeah.
So it's an election, but it's kind of an appointment too, because they're, and that's just kind of the.
But it's the board itself that is pursuing, a board that's looking for somebody to replace that other member that's leaving.
Uh-huh.
And so it's taking it away, it's taking it away from a town manager or a select board group. It's really continuing it in that board. So that board knows somebody who will step in, who will run for that position. So it's, but if you look at all the appointed boards that have openings, there are many, many boards that are still wide open.
Yeah.
So to say that appointed positions are easy to fill, it's not true.
Okay. Good stuff. Anything? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thanks for being a wonderful town clerk.
Thank you.
If you're getting everyone.
Planning board.
Present.
You can stay where you are, but however you want to do it.
No presentation.
No good.
How
I
come
mean.
you guys all sit in the back of the room? Come up here where we are.
Yeah, at least come up so we can hear you, see you a little bit, I guess.
There's no PowerPoint, great. Those of us with bad ears
That's right.
are straining up here.
So, I mean, you know what the conversation is now, right? This is just the same. So, I think the planning board, I don't know that the elected versus appointed position on the board is such a discussion, right? No, I don't think so, right?
It's a
Okay.
policy.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So then it's really a matter of the hiring probably of the director. Does the planning board do it on its own? How much do you involve the town manager, town administrator, whatever we have, and how should that go? And is there a MOU now? Is that part of the process too? Do you have an MOU with the,
Well, we're
for
still
reviews and
operating
things like that?
in- Under an MOU from 2017, but the idea is still the same.
Yeah.
And we don't have any, the last hire, when we hired an assistant planner, was, the board was not involved.
Oh, so that was done through the town?
Yes.
Oh, so that's not even a discussion with you guys then either? Well, this is gonna be short then, isn't it?
Do you know what the process was?
I'm sorry.
Pardon?
Do you know what the process was?
Well, we did support at numerous meetings the creation of an assistant planner. The creation of an assistant planner position was part of our, we felt it was part of our responsibility to fund it. And, but after that, Maren was involved in the hiring process.
Yeah, it was, I worked with HR through the process. Once we had, once the board was happy with the job description, then we went to HR. And there were several of us that did the interview process. I think it was all staff.
Okay, that was for the assistant, but if you leave one of these decades, right, you stay forever, it'd be great, but I don't think it'll happen. So then who's responsible for hiring? Would you still assume it's the town with your, okay. Yes?
So with respect to an MOU, how many staff members are there with MOUs?
I think it's more departments than by member.
Yeah,
Right.
there's a few, I want to say,
There's 7 or 8.
There's quite a few of them. It's basically because, you've got, the board is a part-time board. You need somebody on a day-to-day basis who's there to answer questions. Yes, you can do this, no, you can do that. And do the reviews and those things are all done.
yeah, there's somewhere around 8 to 10 positions that have MOUs
So I
for
think I would
departments.
like, as a planning board member, I would like for there to be greater clarity around the MOU and its role. I would like greater clarity around things such as the reporting structure under which circumstances. And I would also like for there to be information to the board members about things like performance reviews. Who does a performance review? Does the board provide input? I think that's all very important. So having that clarity is something that really should be put into writing.
Right.
Because
And
right now, it isn't clear.
So if things were, well, so let me ask this. So who does your performance review?
Town administrator.
Okay.
Who does?
Town administrator. Okay.
Right, and we've done it differently over time, but it turns out that if you ask the board for input, if you get input from a quorum of the board, then it's public record. And it's no.
I've never been asked for input.
That's not true.
6 or 7 years ago, as a board, we decided to be under the wing of the select board.
Okay.
Originally, we were independent. Maren answered to this board and just this board. And then we decided 6 or 7 years ago, or actually we were asked 6 or 7 years ago to have some more jurisdiction, or however you want to put it. They wanted us to answer to the select board. So Maren answers directly to the select board. At that time, I think it was Keith, wasn't it?
Not to the town administrator, not to the select board.
I mean, to the town administrator,
Yeah.
Keith Bergen was Keith, right?
Yeah.
Keith Bergen, so we decided as a board, we voted that Myron would answer directly, she would be reviewed by them, handled by them. The planning board is an administrative board. I don't think the planning board, as the board, should have jurisdiction over Myron. Myron should be on her own, independent of what we do. We make policy, we make decisions and stuff like that, and Myron oversees what's done for the town on a day-to-day basis. I wasn't originally in favor of answering directly to the selectmen, but since we did it that long ago, and I think it's a good way that it worked better, that it works better since we've done it that way. And I don't think Myron should have to answer to us. We should answer to Myron. How's that?
No, I disagree with that last statement.
Okay, let Darryl.
So I come from a slightly different background on this, but I'm a firm believer in sort of the separation of the boards doing policy and the staff doing execution. In my mind, execution is a town function, and the elected boards do policy, which is townwide policy, and that's where and it's similar to when I was on school committee, we did policy, we didn't do day-to-day execution of schools, types of things. Yeah, that's what the purpose of the professional staff is, and having it sort of accountable through a professional mechanism is the means, not just for this board, but I think all boards should be. We shouldn't have every board doing something different, which is what I think we have today.
Right.
There should be, you should just decide, are the boards going to be policy boards, and then execution is a town function, and that is universal, whether it's cemetery, whether it's planning board, whether it's, ZBA. We should clearly and uniformly have all of the HR processes and procedures and what is the accountability to the board of the professional staff interface, and that be clearly defined and accountable there. But I think part of your charter should be making sure that we're doing it consistently across the town. And then as we consolidate which ones are elected, appointed, or absorbed otherwise, it's 100% consistent across the thing here. And it's not up to local interpretation of the board as to what they think their authorities are relative to staff. Because I think that leads to a lot of confusion.
And that's one of the things when we talk about this, because that's basically what the select board is trying to get themselves in that position, right? Their policy, and they're not in the day-to-day runnings of the town, because a lot of you were involved with that, and it didn't play so well, right, after a while. And so it's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing what you're saying, Darryl. It's like,
Yeah.
so take that same philosophy of policy here and the execution. You got to let the execution, the operations people be operational.
And the accountability goes, who's the primary person accountable for all of it, and it then strikes to having clear job descriptions and job responsibilities, so that you're not, they're not here, but I'll pick on them, that you're not having a random person dig graves. There's a set of qualifications, there's a set of staff that are qualified to do those types of jobs. You don't just say, you're going to go be chief of police because you're the only one in the office today.
That's part of what we're looking to do is get rid of a lot of those MOUs, standardized things across the board, so.
Basically, if you have people.
So everybody's
really-
doing what you say.
Right. If they're reporting directly, then there is no MOU. It doesn't have any purpose anymore.
Yeah.
But go ahead,
I
Al,
would
you had something
actually
to say.
agree with what Darryl just said, and this is the reason why I asked how many MOUs we have, because it seemed like this was an anomaly, and we want to limit those kind of things. So to the degree that we can remove that MOU in this particular situation, I think that would be very helpful.
It brings up, this is a really interesting conversation, but it brings up to me, God forbid, we have to hire a new planner. And how does this work with the separation of administration and elected boards? Should the planning board have any input in that?
Of course.
Well, how does that?
I mean, that's part of what you have to decide, but I mean, on any hiring, you're gonna, you
I think
need
they
to
should.
involve the people who know, right? I mean, the town manager can't hire everybody across the town, and they wouldn't. I mean, if they're not involving the people that know, then that's a problem. But there's still a matter of having this consistency this is the process and this is how it works, and getting, you know, for this one, these are the people we need, for this one, these are the people we need, but here's the process and the paperwork and the responsing and all the kind of things
That
that
goes
works.
back to, you know, consistency of policy and policy boards, and a policy adopted could be, is a representative from the board as part of the interview process.
They may be driving it, they may be driving the process,
Well,
you know.
no,
yeah,
but I mean,
yeah, yeah.
you know, again, we went through this a lot with the school committee.
Mm-hmm.
Superintendent has a lot of responsibilities, but he involves the school committee on the hiring of principals, even though he's the one that
Right.
hires them, so that this, you know, that the boards are part of the process for all of the senior staff.
Right.
And then what's the hiring the superintendent? What was
That was a school committee
School
function,
committee function.
but that's defined by state law.
Right.
Well, I think it's appropriate.
Yeah.
So you can build that stuff in by engineering the process to say that there will be that
Process
in.
of policy.
Right?
Well,
And you can also engineer it in by saying who actually does the appointing and who does the recommending. You can vary that. And you can vary it vis-à-vis who the position reports to. So, to your point, some of these positions could report to the town administrator in a pyramid-shaped organization with one point of accountability, but you could engineer involvement by the appropriate oversight board, committee, body, whatever you want to call it, by involving them explicitly in the selection process and expressing who actually is recommending the hire and who's approving the hire. You can do those things, but I couldn't agree with you more. I want to give my seat up to you for what you said. For what you said. You stated, in my mind, some key organizational dynamic principles in what you said. You talked about consistency. You talked about clarity. I was mowing my lawn the other day thinking about, that's when I do my best thinking. I hope I don't talk out loud because my brain is going like this, and I hope it doesn't come out of my mouth. I was thinking, in preparation for the upcoming forum where we're going to sit and listen to town people, that you know what this whole effort is about? Clarity. This whole effort is about clarity. Having a clear charter outlining who is responsible for what at the highest level, and then having clarity in who's responsible for execution, who's responsible for policy. And I happen to believe in a modern-day organization like this town, and I know there's culture, I know there's history, I know there's all sorts of stuff, but this is growing into a significant, what's the size of the budget of this town? It's humongous. It would suggest to me that you might run this like a centralized organization with highly qualified people who have experience in municipal functioning, reporting to a person who has significant experience in municipal functioning with well-meaning town residents, overseeing it all and giving guidance and direction with consistent policies across to the largest extent possible. Not, maybe there's exceptions for one reason or another, I think. There could be one-offs, but by and large, I think the clarity and the consistency of approach, the consistency, I think, leads to clarity. So anyways, I second the motion.
I pick up on Daryl's experience with the school because I then go back to the responsibility of review. You know, our board isn't involved in the HR stuff with Maren. Should we be? I'm not sure. Daryl, how did you do a review of the school superintendent, the school committee? Or?
Yeah, so school committees are in the review process, Lauren touched on it, is exceptionally difficult because we review the superintendent in public.
Okay.
And that's not,
fun.
not the best process there.
Maybe
and
hard
his performance appraisal is public record.
Maybe hard to
and that's not necessarily
to
something.
recruit people to be superintendent.
Well, it's also a unique position. It's comparable to the entire town, the other part of the operating budget. So that person there, you know, does have quite a bit of different types of responsibility and visibility of things there. But in general, it's a very difficult process there.
That's why our board isn't particularly involved in
You should get asked, though. And I thought that, but I was told that the process is, because I know I heard from Jim, in some cases, he doesn't get any fee. He asks for it, he never gets
Yeah.
feedback sometimes.
Back in the day, we used to, when I was chair, we
Yeah.
were brought in for a review of mine,
Yeah.
along with Anthony or
Yeah, right.
Keith when he was there too, but we started early.
We could certainly clarify that in your report.
But again, I think that goes back to what's the consistent policy you want to have? Do you want to, you got to be careful that if it's a quorum of the board members, then it's the public record as to what the, what the input is, or is it the chairman solicited for input by whoever's conducting the performance review and, types of things there. Again, looking at that and then also looking at the secondary consequences of public meeting law on it. And that's what makes it difficult for the board to provide input versus a representative of the board providing, input.
Have any comments on all this, Maren?
It's, if you look back over time we now have a review process, we now have an HR department, and we seem to be getting better at professionalizing the town administrator's office. It's making it easier and easier to focus on the work at hand than worrying about a lot of other stuff.
In fairness to Maren, this goes, and to me for that matter, this goes back 30-something years. When we started, there was, there was no real process. There was no, we basically barely had human resources back then.
Right.
Probably didn't have any, yeah. And so we did the reviews, and then, like I said, we had 10.
Right, and the MOUs stem a lot from the legislation that enables the planning board to hire staff.
Right.
Okay, that's the
And then it
legal
was just a good
framework
idea to be
and,
under the
how do
selectmen
we
for oversight and everything else like that, and that's what we did.
Yeah, right, how does the town make it work?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark?
So if you, Joe can probably have more information on this than I recall, but if you, a couple of years ago, Maren didn't actually report directly to the town administrator. Facilities department, they had the board of health, and conservation, and building inspectors and everyone, and so I don't know if that's part of, on this part of the town government structure is part of your purview or not, and if it's something that we should be considering again or not, or if Maren wants to comment on what worked better or didn't. Because what ends up happening is when we no longer have, like, effectively that department head, the town administrative manager has that many more direct reports. Right, so at a certain point, you reach saturation, so I don't know which way works better, but.
Sorry, I think you're referring at the attempt to have a land use department
Yes,
with a
land use
department head,
department.
yeah, that never came to fruition. So I think it would be a good discussion to have, having some sort of land use department, but
It's not gonna be within, that's not gonna, that'd be a whole other committee, whole other project. Probably a good idea, but yeah.
Yeah, because that would be probably similar to, how much does DPW encompass, that kind of thing.
Yeah, okay. Yes?
So with regard to some of the discussion from earlier tonight, I wanted to bring up something, a couple of things. One is on the page identifying the charge, it says areas for discussion. And I took a look at this, and under size of boards and committees, length and staggering of terms, I thought about two different things that I would like to put on the table. And one of them is number of absences on a board that are allowed. So for example, in 2018, part of the reason why I ran for the planning board to begin with is because there was a member who was consistently not able to attend, or so late that it was actually delaying the work of the planning board. And so I see that today, not on our board, but on other boards where people are consistently absent. And I, as a resident, would appreciate that there be a policy set again by a governing body that says X number of absences are perhaps, there's a discussion, X number more absences, there's a documentation, probationary period, etc., whatever that process is. But I think it really undermines the purpose of an elected official if they're not going to meetings. So I would highly request that be a consideration of one of the things that can be done.
And there may be things go into the charter, and then we get a lot of these things. The other things, maybe policy recommendations, they're also part of what comes out, but not part of the charter itself.
Yeah. Thank you. And then the second one is term limits. I can appreciate that we have had a town clerk for many years and that there have only been 3 in X decades, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the positions that are held are elected and need to be turned over at times. And so whether that's a 10-year, 12-year term, I do believe it's healthy for the community to be able to get younger, new blood in. I do believe that new ideas need to come with that, and I do believe that too long of a term where there are perhaps elections without people who are running is in some cases out of fear of retribution. So I do believe that term limits can be a useful tool to be able to continuously get that interest in fresh blood onto boards.
And I think, I'm just gonna tie that back, is I think if you go solidify separate policy versus execution, you need career staffers for certain positions because of the knowledge there. But the policy parts could probably benefit from having some refresh in the input side there. But I'd be cautious about some of the professional positions that require extensive training or extensive knowledge, that we don't inadvertently mess that up.
Well, and again, that's up to them, that's their purview.
Yeah, but it's ties it back into, the piece there.
Yes.
But I think you were talking about boards and committees versus staff, is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting point, because when we have no one running, is that because the incumbents are just, I don't know what the right answer is.
I would recommend that the, whatever you are, committee here, look at the number of times we have uncontested races with nobody running.
Mm-hmm.
That strikes me as lack of interest, not lack of competition.
True.
And if we have lack of interest, we really need to see is why are we having these elected positions? And that needs to be a serious readout from this committee here, because it's happening way too much now.
I do like the effort that the library team made to try and, I think they said they had forms to try and encourage people, what does it mean to be a trustee? What's the role? To try and generate some interest.
I am constantly, if I'm at any social thing in town, would you want to run for the planning board? And everyone goes, oh. So, but you're right. I mean, there's like a recruit, this isn't part of your charge.
No,
It's
but
a
I think-
recruitment
But it's
thing.
part of the discussion, and part of the reason we need to do this, because half the ballot
last.
things just different.
Maybe we have like
Yeah, the
a
engagement
nice
effort.
dinner on a Saturday and just say, hey, if you're interested in running, come.
Maybe pay us more.
But, that's just, it's hard to separate out the cause and effect of what's going on. Because a lot of people I meet are in their, 30s and 40s and have kids, and it's just inconceivable that they would, and one of the contentious things we had to do in the last couple of years, I think it was the gun thing, and all these public meetings, and someone I know quite well got up and was railing at, how did this happen, blah, 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 blah. And, I said, I think in a very, non-confrontational way, well, there's always the option of running for these boards. And they said, oh, well, I work. How do you know that? I mean, that was just the rudest. We all work. So.
But is it different that people used to live in town and they worked around town and
That-
they had,
that
you know,
is
they had
definitely-
more small businesses and so
No,
they were more
that's
flexible
true. I mean,
versus,
I would
you know,
say
so.
when I moved my practice to town, it made it a lot easier to do all this. That's true.
If I may, I have two other suggestions under the guise of what you've asked, you
Okay.
know, what does our board need? So, these thoughts are, and I believe you just mentioned part of it, and that is training, proper training. I think that being brought on as an elected official, there's this inherent, maybe it's belief, thought that, oh, you know what you're gonna do. And that's just not the case. Our roles need to be defined, our duties need to be defined, we need to be given the bylaws under which we are, or whatever charge it is under which we are to operate. Those are all the things that need to be provided to any incoming board or committee member, regardless of what committee or board, and it should be standardized. These are the guidelines, if you will, of the town of Littleton. When we go to Diana and we take that oath, now what, right? Well, there should be something given to us as a now what, so that we know.
And even someone telling you that you have to go and take it.
Yeah, you're right, exactly.
And I agree with that.
Exactly.
And if I could, one of the last things the Town Government Study Committee did 20 years ago, the last recommendation was to have something handed out to every new person that was getting on the board. It never happened.
Well, there we go.
So you have a second chance to fix that.
That's right, huh?
20 years to work on it, it'll be great.
Before Anna goes to her last point, I'd say that's all. One of my hats that I wear is a board member of Citizen Planner Training Collaborative. And we try to do that to statewide, is help planning board members and planning staff with basic training. And those are offered across the state.
And our board members are offered, you know, they usually have twice a year, like it's usually Holy Cross and well, actually, they're all the time.
Annual conference.
But they had the annual conference,
Workshops
and we had a little budget to pay for the registration fees if any of the board members want to do that. And I know I've done some, I know Daryl has.
Right, those board members
And the
have.
Board of Appeals also is sending that out. I know the CPC is also, I mean, there's a conference in Carlisle in a week or two. And so these are publicized, but to the board members, but that doesn't mean there's no, you know, you've got to go do this, so.
Yes, that is something that is offered. I'm speaking about something more local specific to us as new members. Then the last thing I wanted to request, and I guess this would take a little bit of money, but I believe that every elected official should have a town email address. As the planning board, we have not been given email addresses, for whatever the reason is. And so as a result, residents who want to communicate with us either have to get our personal email addresses, or they need to go through Marin. And sometimes
That's weird.
communication has
Yeah.
been given to me by residents, and they said, well, we asked this to get distributed, and it's not. So I would ask that any elected official be given a town email address.
Have you asked for them and they said no? Because they made us get them when some people didn't want them.
we got 'em.
I don't know, why don't we ask why we don't have them?
Yeah, I know, I set up a Gmail just for planning board.
Yeah, but you should have it, if you want a town one, you should, and you
I
should have
think
a town
in
one.
terms of the professionalization
Yeah, yeah,
of
yeah,
town
you should have
operations,
it.
when I was on
Definitely.
school committee, school department gave us email addresses so that all of our communications was clear that it was coming
Right.
from
Exactly.
schools. When you get something from me, you know,
Gmail.
darylbaker.planningbboard@gmail, how do you know that that's actually an official communications versus just some random person that's established a
an email account and representing themselves.
Well, even just the
Is that
town
subject to
meeting
open
stuff, I
record?
would think with you guys, or open meeting stuff with you guys, if you're all communicating by your personal emails, and there's really, like, that's obviously outside of our,
That was
way,
my
way
question.
outside of our,
know that.
our.
As if your Gmail is subject to
Yeah.
open record laws, and if so, how would anyone subpoena it?
Well, that's why I did just the planning board thing, because if there was a subpoena, I could just give them that, and not my entire, you know.
Amazon ordering history.
And that would be, the
When I was on
assigned,
Yeah, makes
PMBC,
sense.
we had, again, personally established email accounts, and we're doing official business of the town, asking for bids. It's like, really? Let's talk about, you know, simple, I know, you know, we need to be looking at the professionalization of the town in all of its operations.
Yeah, totally. Okay, Rob.
So I welcome all the comments, but most of these comments, I would argue, please don't wait for us, because we've got months and months to go.
And we can.
Please move on all of the comments that you made with, you know, intent to get them resolved, because you can get them resolved a lot faster than we're gonna produce a report that's gonna be considered by the select board. I mean, I appreciate the comments.
I'm not
but-
sure that that's the case.
Well, but.
I think the
should-
select board has been addressed about getting like email accounts, and the cost was brought up as the reason why it's not done.
That's not
It's
my,
nodding.
I
No,
can just share
but,
with you.
but that's why, in terms of a charter committee, we need to make sure that formalization of these things actually show up as solid recommendations also.
Please, so that's.
So that it's not because they don't want to spend X dollars per person to buy email accounts.
You'll pay for that down the road someplace.
No, I know.
For those of importance that you feel strongly about, please move with haste.
We have town emails and they don't. You guys are a lot more important than we are.
Yeah, no kidding.
But see, that's back to, again, it's arbitrary decisions that are not uniformly enforced.
Gotcha.
And that's what the charter committee ought to be talking about.
Back of the room.
Huh? Oh, Mark?
I have a different question for the planning board. They're on 5-year terms. Just about every other board is on 3-year terms. So you might want to explore that one.
I totally agree, and whenever I bring it up, it's, because five-year term is daunting. And I bring it, whenever I bring it up, it's like, well, the planning process is lengthy, and you need, which is true, and you need the, you know, the continuity. But I agree with you, Mark. I mean, we can, I guess I'm chairman, I can bring it up at a meeting and see what we think. But I don't know how we change our term. I mean, who do we, what's the process of that?
We'll put it in the charter.
Okay.
You put it in the charter. That is a good place to do that.
Yeah, and it's sort of a nice thing now, we have 5 members, 5-year terms, if someone's up for reelection, which makes sense and makes things easier. But we can talk about, you know, well, we should maybe as a board talk about it.
Soon.
Yeah.
Let us know if you want us to pursue that.
Yeah.
And we can talk about it ourselves too.
I mean, it hasn't always been that way. How long has it been?
It's always been 5.
Oh, it's always been 5, okay.
Okay.
Excellent points, thank you.
Thank you so much. That was good. Very different. That's good.
Thank you
Good
for
to-
all your work.
Good discussion.
Even twice a
Interesting.
month is not done.
It's been interesting. It's fascinating to see how it all comes together. I wish there were just an easy answer, like this is boom, 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 you know? I'll try. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, well, as usual. Took more time than we thought, so I would suggest that we do the update on the public forum. You got anything you want to?
Logistic-wise, we've got the date, we've got the location.
Say, why don't you give your spiel?
100.
When you're on television real quick, you want to?
I'm sorry?
I just, when you're on television, you mind to just say specifically what it is?
Oh, yes. So, public forum, Tuesday, October 14th, 6 o'clock, the Center on Shattuck at the multipurpose room. The agenda, learn what a town charter does, hear progress to date, research observations and emerging themes, share your ideas, concerns, questions. So we're in the PR phase. Alan has 100 less 8.
Okay.
flyers that Thank You Very Much has offered to put up around town. I owe an email to Library LCTV and the Center on Shattuck to get it on digital signage. But I think the more important topic is the content of the meeting, which I know Kevin and Charlotte had outlined preliminary agenda. I think having this team being real solid on what it is. Like, one of the things I heard tonight was, oh, it's concentrating power in the hands of one person. And you start letting that multiply and it's going to shut down everything. So I think the messaging has got to be real crystal clear. I like your theme of clarity and just sort of using that as the headline, perhaps. I think.
Clarity, and I'd add continuity.
Yeah.
Because like when I hear every board has 3-year terms, except for this one.
Yeah, I mean, everything we've heard throughout this whole process, oh, this is an exception and that's an exception, and, you know, they may or may not have a good case why, but there's always an if, and, or but, and then that's why there's so much spinning around.
It seems like the answer to why is just, it's been that way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which is not a very good
strong
reason.
case for status quo.
I don't agree with that. I hear very different answers with regard to, yes, it's also said it's been that way, but sorry, I heard very specific reasons as to why some town clerk gave a very
excellent.
Very excellent, and it wasn't because it's just been that way. It's been for many, many, many reasons that she stated as to why she thinks it should be the way it is.
But it seemed to hinge on the hopes or the luck, or we've been lucky that we've had good people in these positions. But what if we don't? What if we elect someone?
I don't think you heard that. I think what I heard was she stated that as her predecessor left, she was proposed and recommended to fill the position. So I don't consider that luck. I heard her also make reference to Andrew Samarco, the assistant town clerk today. So I'm just saying that, and I've thought this for months, we have these presentations. You brought up the last time, we really haven't deliberated and discussed amongst ourselves certain positions. And so I'm finding now as some statements are being made that I just have to put my stake in the ground and we'll discuss it at another time. Hopefully, again, not at the end of the meeting.
No, I mean.
Seems like that's the only time we get time to
So
actually
I don't
deliberate,
disagree.
though.
So let's talk about the
don't
next meeting.
disagree.
So I agree, but we decided to bring everybody in here rather than going out to them. And I think it was the right call, but because of that, it takes a lot of time. I don't know any magic to get around that. The next meeting, right now, I've asked the Board of Health if they want to come twice. I haven't heard back yet. I haven't heard back. Well, just that the director said she was going to forward it to the board. And then I asked again today, but I haven't heard back, so they may or may not. But that's the only thing I have right now for the next meeting. So my intention is the next meeting, now that we basically talked to everybody at the Board of Health. I think it was good to see how the different ones are, because then you can kind of compare and contrast. You know, everyone says, oh, but we're different, we're unique. But, you know, they are and they aren't in some cases. So we'll be able to go through them, I think, at the next meeting and start really saying what we're going to do.
And prepare for the forum.
Charlotte's got her
Yeah,
hand.
we can talk about that. Do we need to do that in the meeting, or can we do
We
an
can
off
do it
meeting?
sometime before the
Just a matter,
meeting.
we just have to have less than a quorum, otherwise we can still do it, we just have to post it and so on.
Yeah,
So
like I
that-
said, those guys have
I
drafted
think we should just set some
the
extra time to
agenda.
do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think you've got a good agenda outlined.
So I wasn't here. I tried to get into the last meeting, but was unsuccessful. Tried to Zoom. The minutes state that you discussed utilizing the scheduled Thursday, October 9th for deliberations. Are we doing that, or are we hosting more groups?
Yep, so there's one more group that's been invited to come October 9th. If they come, they come, but if they do, it's still one group, and then the rest of the meeting is deliberations.
Okay.
That's my plan. You guys tell me.
Good.
That's the plan.
That's the way I
As
thought.
long as we have time to have these
Right,
discussions.
we need to have it.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I mean, but if we had done it halfway through, you kind of need to see them all.
No,
right?
I agree.
I just.
And if I think we should anticipate, for whatever reason, if we don't get all of the deliberation done, which I don't think we will on October 9th, that we'll need to spend some extra time at another meeting at some point.
Yeah. Okay, and so would you all prefer, I mean, I know some of you have family commitments and so on, like, you don't want to stay later, you'd rather leave at 8 or 8:30 and then have another time instead?
I say if we're here, we're here.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
I would too, but I don't know.
as much as I'd
agree.
like to end the meeting at 8, I think
Okay.
we're charged with this mission, and we have a lot of things that
I'm
haven't
fine with that. I
been
just was
solved.
getting the feeling from some of
We'll
you
bring-
all
we'll
that
bring
like, I gotta
snacks.
get out of here.
I simultaneously don't want to do it, but feel compelled to do
Okay,
it.
all right.
It's easier than.
I do want to get out of here, but I agree.
Okay,
We
good.
need-
All
Well,
right.
it's easier than trying to find another day.
Yeah, right.
Totally agree, all those things. All right, so the 9th will come and we're gonna get through some of this and make some decisions.
And I'll bring snacks.
Charlotte's got her hand raised.
Charlotte? Charlotte?
Hey, yeah, just a quick note on the public forum. I did plug it on the podcast the other day, so that's another place where people hopefully would have heard about the date, and they said that they would circulate the flyer as well. I also saw it on the library newsletter. I think it was the library news, one or the other. And then just on public forum agenda setting, I think over email, Kevin and Karen and I had discussed sort of separately getting together and hashing out the content a little bit more. So we can also do that in between meetings.
You can include me if you want to. Yep. Okay, if you want to. If not, it's okay too. Let's do the content and the.
You're the headliner,
Let's do
so.
it. I better be included so I know what I'm doing. All right, thank you. Let's just do a separate time for that.
Okay.
All right, so the next meeting, Thursday, October 9th, is that it?
9th.
Okay, so, okay, minutes, let's do minutes real quick. Minutes from September 15th. Do I have a motion?
I read those.
Okay.
I
And?
propose that we approve them.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Do we have to, with?
Oh, Ev, do we have to do, so we have to do it one by one to go to Charlotte?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
that's true.
sure, go ahead.
Aye.
Aye.
That's easy, yes.
Aye.
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 Abstain.
Charlotte? Maybe.
Aye.
Thank you.
Charlotte, did you get the abstain?
I did, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, so moved, that's done, and I guess I need a motion to adjourn.
Adjourned.
Second, somebody?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Charlotte, we
Aye,
don't need to
aye.
count, we don't do one by one for that one. All right, thanks, good night, everybody, thank you very much.
Thank you.